Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, about time.
Who is my? Hey, there we go.
Hey, oh,
Sorry.
it always takes an hour to get this thing
doing right.
right.
So, but yeah, how you doing?
Good, and you?
Doing good, thank you. You know, you had class tonight?
I did. Gladys.
Yeah. So this session, this is some pretty heavy stuff.
Right,
Definitely hit a couple threads with just with students that I mentor that are in middle school, where bullying and cyberbullying is a big issue for them. And so for like it touched on a lot of threads for that for me personally because I mentor a lot of girls that are going through these issues. So being
right,
able to see some of the articles and listen to some of um, the NPR podcasts was pretty heavy.
right. And I think it's crazy because I deal with behaviors and stuff. And like
Mm-hmm.
about 2 weeks or so ago, one of the fifth grade boys had came to me saying that he's been bullied on like Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff. And I'm just like, first of all, you're in fifth grade, so you shouldn't even have social media. That's number one.
Right. Right.
Number two, like I'm asking what are they saying and everything like that, and he told me. So I actually went to one of the boys that he said was bothering him, and he told me like, yes, I said it to him, and you know what I'm saying. I'm just like, we're just in like a whole new
Right. There's
realm.
there's absolutely no shyness about the fact that yeah, I said it, I did it, whatever.
Right, and I'm just like, you don't realize what that did to him, and he's kind of like one of the shy ones, so he's not gonna say anything to him,
Mm-hmm.
if he's around him. So I'm just like, cyberbullying is just as bad as it is face to face. Y'all see each other every day, so it's gonna be spread around the class and all that stuff. So I was just like, this reaffirmed what I was seeing at work. Period.
Yeah, and it's very much like they think that it's just gonna kind of go away
Right,
because it's on the computer or through the cell phone or whatever else it is. That it's there, but it's not real in
right.
some aspects, you know. So it's like it's okay,
Hmm.
but it's not.
And like, I'm glad that how the guidance counselor is the one that sent them to me. So I'm
Mhm.
like glad that I addressed it because I feel like some teachers are going to be like, it's not happening here, so it doesn't matter. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's not anything that's happening during the day. It's happening at home and it's happening on behind the screen, so they can't do anything about it. So, I mean, I'm like kind of mentoring him now,
Hmm.
just if you have anything to talk about, you come see me, good, bad,
Right.
you know, anything. So, and I've been trying to tell him, like, watch what you say online too, because I don't know what he's doing, if he's doing
Hmm.
anything. I'm
Right.
like, stuff doesn't go away. So, just watch what you say, and you can be misread behind the screen. They can think that you're being smart, or they can think that you're saying it one way when you're totally not. So
Oh,
that's
very much so. There's so many perceived slights through text, through messages on Facebook. Half the time when people get excited or animated on social media, it's because they inferred a tone that was not
right,
present in the text.
right. And I think
So,
it was like crazy. One of the podcasts talked about a girl that, similar to the story, she asked the other person where did she do it, and she was just like, yeah, like and I don't care.
right. Yeah, the one with where the little girl ended up committing suicide.
Right,
Yeah, I listened to that one too, and it was like, and it wasn't even just yeah, I bullied her, but it was yeah, I
right,
bullied her and she killed herself, and I really don't
right,
care. And it was like
exactly.
how the amount of apathy
Hmm.
that that took for her to say, yeah, so I did it. What
Right.
you know?
And I think it's just like crazy because, I mean, we can't help what they say, online. But even in my response that I wrote when I was in high school, I think it was about like my sophomore year, they brought in a police officer. Well, it was like three or four of them. And they talked to us about like the dangers of social media. Back then that was like MySpace and all that stuff. So, they were
Right.
like letting us know, watch what you put on here, watch who you meet. And I think that was a good thing because that was somebody that wasn't a teacher, that was somebody that didn't work in the building,
Mhm.
but still showed that they cared about, your well-being. And it was a police officer who was supposed to protect us anyway. So
Right.
I think they need that kind. I mean, now you need it in elementary school, but
Yeah.
if you have like that reinforcement to say watch what you say, and it's not just your teacher telling you that or your mom telling you that, um, I think it'll work because reinforcement, when they hear it over and over again, that's when they start to actually be like, okay, maybe this is, I need to watch what I do, not wait till something
Mhm.
tragic happens, like somebody kills themselves or
Mhm.
somebody gets kidnapped or something like that.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to what you're talking about too, about being glad that you talked to that student,
Right.
because so many times there is this threat of, well, it happened at home, it happened on your
Hmm.
phone, it happened on this, and as education as people in education, we don't have to step up and do something, when really we do have that responsibility of talking with the student and referring them to other people in our building, if not just talking to their parents and being like, hey, you need to be aware of this situation that your student or that your child told me about, you know,
Right.
because it's very much a different age. Even looking at the one article, the cyberbullying using virtual scenarios, that one by Vivian Wright
Hmm.
and all, that was put out in 2009, and so technology has changed so drastically, even from when this article was published, that now things like Snapchat,
Right.
Instagram, Twitter was out at that point, but so many other forms of social media that are very good sites for people who are trying to bully.
Right. And I think it
You
was
know.
the article was saying that like girls are more in tune to uh being into cyberbullying. Though they didn't say like one gender is more than the other,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like girls are more in tune to do it and boys are more to do it face to face. And I'm just like, which made sense like, before like when I was in like elementary school and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
nowadays I just feel like they don't care. Boy, girl, they're gonna say
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um Sometimes they don't have respect for authority, and I think that's what goes a long way with it as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Or that there's
They're gonna
not
say
going
what
to
they
be any consequences for their actions. Because, well,
right,
I have freedom of
right.
speech, so I'm allowed to say whatever I want whenever I feel like it. Whereas that's
Hmm.
not exactly what the freedom of speech means. Like,
Right.
you know, um, but also like looking at going back to the NPR podcast about the girl and how she got so many other people along with her to jump on the bandwagon of bullying that kid.
Right.
It's like, and middle schoolers especially, I feel like, are so easily led,
Hmm.
and adolescents in general, teenagers, middle
Right.
schoolers, elementary students, they're very easily led by their peers,
Hmm.
and so
Like,
it's. Mhm.
trying to look cool. So it's like what everybody else do. That's
Right.
what I'm gonna do. Like even looking back at myself, I was a totally different person than I am now. So it's like
Mhm.
I can only imagine with all this social media and I mean when I was in high school. I mean I'm young, but when I was in high school, MySpace was it. We didn't have like you know Instagram, Kick, Facebook, like
Yeah.
So I think with all these outlets too, that gives them to be a different person behind screen. Because some people they're one person on social media than they are in person. They may not talk in person,
Oh
but
yeah.
behind the screen you can say whatever you want without having to face to face contact too.
Right. And too, when you with social media, I mean, it's very easy to spam people and to get people just to constantly comment on things. And
Right.
so in some ways, when it talked about how students now, if they're facing being bullied at school, but then also being bullied through technology, there is no release unless they turn their phone off, turn off all social
Right.
media, and like go in their closet.
Right.
But they're really, it's all day long. There's no time away from it. Whereas it talked about, it used to be, Monday to Friday from 8 to 4, and then
Right.
hopefully you had the weekend to
Exactly.
kind of recoup and build yourself back up. Whereas now it's 24 hours a day.
Right. And with that too, I was saying, when they said the Monday through Friday, and I'm just like, social media has it to the point where it's there forever. Like,
Mm-hmm.
on Instagram, if you don't delete it, it's still gonna be there. On Facebook, they have the whole timeline thing now where you can even go
Right.
back to when you start. So that's when it's always gonna be there unless you take it off. So I think that is the reason why they remember it more too. Before it was like it happened on Monday, it'll be gone by like Thursday, and you don't even remember what exactly happened. But now it's just like you can keep replaying it and replaying it, and then people share it, or
Or they
other people it as
screenshot it, so
well.
it doesn't matter that if you deleted it
Right,
or not. It's like, well, hey, guess
right,
what? I took a screenshot of it, so I still have it.
right,
And so
exactly.
it definitely makes it more difficult as an educator to combat cyberbullying and to talk to students about it, because I feel like there are students who are apathetic to it, like, that really doesn't happen that often,
Right.
when in reality it happens quite a
Yeah.
bit.
hmm Because even before, like me, I thought, you know, maybe one or two people, or some people make it more than it is. But then when I got to college and I saw like on the news, people were killing themselves.
Hmm.
Somebody jumped in front of a train, like
Oh gosh,
all because of like cyberbullying. I'm like, I don't think people realize the effect that it has until it goes
it's
to
too late. Yeah.
right.
Well, yeah, and it kind of is that almost like video game mentality where it's
hmm
not real because I'm not doing this to that person face to face.
Right.
Like it's happening through another media form, so I can say and do whatever I feel,
hmm
and that it really isn't going to hold any consequence. I mean, and really that's kind of apparent even in what that girl said, about, yeah, I bullied her, I killed, and she killed herself, but I don't give a beep.
hmm
Like
Right.
that thinking is apparent in her statement, that it's like, this holds no real consequences for me. Whereas years down the line, when she's matured more, like, and she's gonna have to look back on that and say, man, I I incited a bunch of people to bully this person to the point that they took their life.
Right. Like
Like
even
that's heavy.
I think it was in that article where it was like there should be some kind of penalty, like maybe
Hmm.
not jail, or maybe like community service or something like that. I just feel like when it gets to a point where the victim takes their own life, there needs to be some type of
Consequences.
consequence.
Hmm.
Because when there's not people like her, they're just like, yeah, I did it and she's dead and I'm still doing whatever I got to do. You know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? So I think there needs to be like maybe you need community service, like do what the jail people do on the highway, pick up the garbage or something like that. Just to reinforce that it doesn't need to happen again. Because without consequence, they're just gonna keep doing it.
Yeah, I agree that there needs to be consequence. And I did like what they said though about having them talk with other students
hmm
that are bullies
Right.
through social media and technology, because something that could be something powerful where a teenager might not listen to you or me or even to a police
Right.
officer, but when they hear another student who's been there and said, hey, wait, I was where you're at, I was doing what you're doing, and this is the consequences, maybe not right now, but maybe in 3 weeks, or you never know the power of what you're doing until something negative happens, and it shouldn't always have to get to that point, unfortunately.
Right. I think people telling their stories does help.
Hmm.
'Cause like you said, they'll receive it more from if they're in high school and there's a senior telling them rather than
Hmm.
an adult coming to tell them, because it's going to be like they've heard it all before.
Hmm. Well, and then I ended up listening because I got so hooked into the cyberbullying podcast. I actually listened to one of the other ones on NPR about bullying and the psychiatric illnesses being linked, and it was
hmm
saying that children who were both victims of bullying and then went on to bully themselves, like to bully other people as well, were 14 where'd it go? Um, 14 times more likely to have a panic disorder as a young adult.
Oh, wow.
And kids who were bullied were 4 times more likely to have an anxiety disorder as a young adult. So, in seeing that thread of victim turned bully, or like victim turned the bully, it was kind of interesting to see what it was saying about that. Because I think oftentimes we just look at kids as either being bullies or victims
Right.
instead of trying to see the whole picture of why is this student doing what they're doing, whether it's happening at school in person or outside of the school environment.
Right, and usually it comes from like insecurities, like I have to be this way in order to be
Mm-hmm.
accepted by everybody else, or
Mm-hmm.
everybody else is doing it, so why not? So I think that's like especially the people that are bullying others. Um,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm bigger than you, so I'm gonna do what I can.
Right.
So I think a lot comes from that as well. So, and I agree with them panic attacks because it's just like all the thinking of going back and thinking about all that stuff that you've done. You're just like, that's overwhelming, especially
Right.
if you've done it to the fact where the person is no longer here or
Mm-hmm.
messed up their life in some kind of way. So,
Yeah. It's just, and it's difficult because you like, for me, I want to, like, what do we do? What are the next steps? How do we fix this problem? Is it more partnering with the community, partnering with parents, talking more with our students, being good advocates about what acceptable use of our digital media is, you
right.
know, and then what else beyond that? Because those are things that I think that we're already doing. So
hmm
then how else do we attack this?
Right. And I think they all need, like, my position in Dorchester County, they're putting it like everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
In Dorchester County, education specialists, like elementary school, middle school,
Mm-hmm.
high school, but it's not fully implemented yet. So I think this position, just like the report that I've gotten with the students, mentoring and stuff like that, like he's in fifth grade. June, he's not going to be with me anymore. Like, I mean, luckily the school is across the street, but he can't just walk out of class and come to me,
Right.
to talk and stuff. So I think that's a big help too, being in having somebody in a school that the student could go talk to that's other than a classroom teacher because I can't just walk up in your class like I need to see you, to take away
Right. Yeah,
from
I can't interrupt you while you're teaching fractions at the same time
right,
to tell you what's going on with my life.
right,
But I do think that we need to put some of the responsibility back on the classroom teachers too, to be aware not just of what the content they're teaching, but aware of what's going on in their students, because you can't really teach the content unless you know your students. And
right,
if you know your students and if you're paying attention to your students, then you're going to know when something's wrong. So even if that student's not said anything, I could say to you, hey, I've noticed that so and so has been really acting differently. Could you talk with them and see where they're at? So even if it's not the student coming to somebody else, but
right,
as educators and as professionals
right.
saying, hey, something's not right here.
hmm Like even my principal, like one of the students that I see
Mm-hmm.
frequently, like one day he had a bad day and we ended up in the main office, and she was like, I knew your day was gonna be off because you came up to me and like hugged her by her legs, and usually he doesn't like anybody to touch him, so when he's willingly opening his arms and giving you hugs and stuff, something's, you
Yep.
have to catch it
Oh yeah,
before it
before.
gets to that point. So I think that is important for you to know your students, because if she didn't know that, then we wouldn't have known to get him before it got to the point where
Right.
you can't bring him back down. So
Yeah.
when you know the ways of your students, you're good.
Yeah. So one of the other things in the article that I found interesting was how they defined the different types of cyberbullying
hmm
that exist. Things like, I mean, things that I realized, like harassment and cyber stalking, but like the impersonation and the outing, like the intentional outing of people to get them to send embarrassing information, and like exclusion, and then like just all the different areas of how they've categorized it.
hmm
But then it's like, how do we work against those different things? Because we can't just go up to students and say, okay, hand over all your social media devices, like hand over your phone, your laptop. You can't use any of it anywhere. Like, because of
Right.
cyberbullying, we're taking away all the technology. That's not going to work. So there has
Right.
to be other ways.
hmm I think it should be like I always say, like stuff like art integration, drama integration,
Mm-hmm.
technology integration, cyberbullying. All this should be in like a professional development. Teachers have to go to it. Well, educators, period, have to go to it.
Right.
So, give them the steps needed in order to address it, not only in the classroom, but in the school, period. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I feel like professional developments will take care of because they're mandatory. Like, you can't not go. So,
Mm-hmm.
if they give you ways to address cyberbullying or, ways to try to prevent it, because number one, it can't happen overnight, and number two, it
Right.
can't happen with just one person.
Right.
So if they get everybody together and try to facilitate it that way, I think it'll be like really impressive.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing too is that we've really got to connect with parents. So I'm looking for one of the quotes that I wrote down. But we really have to connect with parents in order to really highlight to them the importance of checking with your student or
Hmm.
their child rather about what's going on in your day, not just what's going on in school, what did you learn, or things like that, but how are you doing? How are your relationships with your friends? Being intentional in the questions that parents are asking their children, and not saying, "Hey, well, the computer's a safe place. I know my student is on, or my kid's on Facebook or this or that," but really being intentional and monitoring what they're doing.
Right.
Because they're not adults. They're not. They're their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. They're not great at making decisions.
Mhm.
You know.
And I think the issue is too, like a lot of parents want to be their child's friend,
Mm.
so they forget that balance. Like me and my parents are like, we're close, but I know, that they're my parents. So,
Right.
you know, there
Right.
there's some things that you can't say, there's some things that you can't do, that you wouldn't do to one of your friends in school. So I think they miss that balance because yeah, you want to have that friendship with your child so they'll be able to tell you whatever's going on, but don't
Mm.
do it so much where you're not being a parent either. That means parental locks on stuff like Facebook and Instagram and social media because then that'll just kill everything that's going on anyway.
Right.
Um, Being monitored. Like I remember when I was younger, I had an AOL account, but I can do absolutely nothing. Like it didn't have nothing but games. Everything else had parental lock on it. So it's
Right.
like even if I wanted to, I couldn't. And I feel like that'll at least the younger ones, because by high school it's just like it doesn't. They can get on whatever they want to. It's still
Mm.
limited, but not as limited as like grade school. So I think that X out like the issues in elementary school and middle school. Because I'm just like y'all are young. Just be happy that you see your friends every day. Be happy that you're living. Be happy that you get free lunch.
Yeah.
So I think that eliminate a lot of stress
Yeah.
with younger kids.
And I think maybe too, because I know like in elementary school we do a lot of character building and a lot of, like mini lessons on, not just how to be a good friend, but serious situations that you find yourselves in and role playing with students on what they would do in those situations. And I think that we have to realize that as technology constantly changes and things are changing faster and faster, and with
Right.
more options out there for children of all ages to be involved in a digital platform, that we're engaging with them in these conversations about what it means to be a digital citizen. Like, what do you do if one of your friends is being bullied online? What do
Right.
you do? Like, who are you going to go to? Are you going to go to your friends and bully the person back? And
Right.
get all of them to send them messages, or what are the choices? What can you do? Instead of taking it from this kind of ethereal problem that just lives online to something real and tangible and saying, this happens, so what do we do about it? And
Right.
being intentional in addressing it.
And like I think we said it before, find ways to make technology useful other
Mm-hmm.
than educational purposes. Maybe they have an interest in like art or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. Have them use technology for the good rather than just trying to look impressive for everybody else. Like I don't know who it was. One of my friends has a class and they had to create a Twitter, so they
Mm-hmm.
have to tweet a certain amount of times a week about different topics that they get in class. Like use these things for good purposes rather than just making it a whole big mess. So I feel like if we and parents, because I think it's not being reinforced at home. So just because it's the 8 hours in the school day, when they get home, it's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
So I think if educators and the parents get together and trying to find ways to make it useful rather than them being bored, so they're starting up drama. it'll
Right.
create it in a better way.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with what you're saying that it's more about being creators with the technology than consumers, and that was something too that looking at the article and the podcast for the second part of the assignment, the digital divide things.
Right.
A lot of it came back to that, there is a divide, and there's the divide as far as access to technology is decreasing, but how we're using the technology is
Mhm.
there's still some major gaps.
Right. Because like even when I was in elementary school, we had computers, like I said before, but they were like three. We never used them.
Mm-hmm.
If we used them, they were like for indoor recess or something like that. So it's
Right.
like um, when we got to the point, well, computers were like just getting big, but when we got to the point where we did use them for like papers and stuff, there were some people that didn't even have them in their houses. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that access, even though it's diminishing, is still a big problem because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't have that at home. So the only technology resources they have is in school. So
Right. Because you
either
can't
find ways like
type a paper with your cell phone.
right,
You know.
and that's exactly what I wrote in my response. So I was like, it's easy to get some of those tools from like iPads or iPhones or something like that. But when you get to high school or college, to the point we need to write a paper, you can't do that on, you know.
Yeah, I mean, even with a tablet, you could use Evernote or some of those other things, but still,
Right,
the formatting for a paper, they don't
right,
have that. They need like Evernote, like formal paper edition.
right.
Like it's not going to mess with the margins or things like that. And I mean that would be one way for apps, but really putting appropriate technology in the hands of everybody so
Right.
that they can be creators and not just consumers.
Hmm.
You know.
Like, cause what like one of my classmates says, well, like when they're in their class, she teaches math. All the
Mm-hmm.
students have computers,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm like, it's giving them all the same resource at the same time for the same amount of time. It's not like we have to do rotations three now because we only have three computers with 24 students.
Right.
So I think that's where the divide comes in as well. It's like everybody's not on the same level because there's not enough resources in the classroom. And then you give them no resources, and then it's like, what do we do?
Right. Or two, with the resources that the teacher is aware of.
Hmm.
Because like in my building, one of my biggest struggles, because I'm one of the lead technology teachers in my building, and so, sometimes they think that means I can come fix their computer when it breaks. Not so much. It's more the educational purpose. But like
Right.
something like we got, I think it's like 25 mini iPads to use
Mhm.
throughout our building, and so we can check them out in like groups of 5, which is great for a small group,
Right.
um, but not as far as the whole class using them at one time. But some of the teachers, the biggest struggle that I have is getting them to use the technology in ways that are going to that provide for meaningful learning. Like you're
Right.
not just letting them play
Right.
PBS Kids apps,
Right.
watching mini episodes about whatever it is that you're teaching, but it's
Hmm.
actually engaging them in the technology to create and
Hmm.
develop. And yes, I teach pre-K. They can still create and
Right.
develop. They can be
Like,
pretty ingenious. And if you just
right.
give them the iPad and say, "Here, use this in your center for 10 minutes," they're going to open every single app
Hmm.
on the iPad and not engage with technology in appropriate ways. So even though they're being given access, it's not meaningful.
Hmm. Like I did my student teaching in kindergarten, and I
Mm-hmm.
used the interactive smart board like
Mm-hmm.
24/7. Like I used it to like answer math questions, for writing. I used it for centers, like, and it's more than just them playing like solitaire or
Mm-hmm.
them playing, a regular game on one of the websites. It's actually them being advocates of learning rather than just wasting their time. So it gave them skills, and they were learning. I had them do it in groups, so it
Right.
was like if Sally didn't know what 2 plus 2 was, Mary was going to help out. So it
Right.
forces collaboration as well.
So then, looking at the article that we had for the digital divide section, looking at the differences as far as age
Hmm.
between different groups of people and how age determined. to some of the accessibility to technology or knowledge of technology. That part was kind of eye-opening for me because I didn't really think about that,
Hmm.
you know.
Right.
But it makes sense too. Like um, one of the NPR podcasts was talking about, it doesn't seem like it would be such an issue. The differences um, in different age ranges having access to technology or being able to utilize it properly. But when you're talking about families where you have grandparents that are caregivers for
Hmm.
school-age children, that makes a difference. Because
Right.
if grandmom doesn't have internet access at home, and let alone know how to use a computer or have access to any type of technology, like
Mhm.
that's difficult.
Like even in one of the podcasts, I think
Mm-hmm.
the person's name was Watkins. He was saying that
Mm-hmm.
it's happening through social entrepreneurs who have decided right that these issues are so important that the digital divide today is really about digital literacy. And how do
Right,
you begin to create environments, create spaces that encourage and
right.
support kids' ability to develop the kinds of digital media skills that they need? And this, it's like for myself, my mom is a payroll specialist, so she's tech savvy
Mm-hmm.
now. But before she didn't know anything, and don't ask my father because he doesn't know anything as well. So it's like, you have to have those parents who are willing to get that kind of help, whether it's, maybe some teachers get together and help them out, or they learn
Right.
from one of their child's friends' parents or something like that. But it's like, what do you do when the child has no knowledge of it, but they have no knowledge of it at home either? So it's like, so,
Right.
like say if a student needs a computer at home because they have a paper to write, but
Mm-hmm.
mom doesn't know how to use a computer, neither does that, so they don't get it. So like, what do you do?
Right, or that, and two, with the speed at which technology is moving, so many times things are becoming obsolete faster.
Hmm.
So like the the laptop that I got in college, it doesn't really work too well now. It's it's in the laptop graveyard, but I
Right.
mean, because things aren't lasting as
Hmm.
much because they can't keep up with the software updates or
Right.
things like that. So even if there is a computer, in the home, or being able to maintain appropriate technology
Right.
is becoming more difficult.
Exactly. And I'm like, it's just a necessity. Like every career uses technology, whether they
Oh
use
yeah.
just sign in, swipe your badge, or type your name. Like even applications for
Hmm.
schools, jobs, some of them are online. So you have to give them those skills. And if they don't know how to type, it's
Yeah.
just like it's going to take 3 hours, or they're not going to know how to do it at all.
One of the NPR podcasts, it was with Stafford, Martin, and Armstrong,
Hmm.
um, and Rose Rocca Castro, and they were saying that even McDonald's applications you have to do online. You know what I mean? Like you can't.
Right.
So it's like if regardless of what your skill set is or what your goals are for your life or where you like what job or position or career you want to have, you have to be able to have some tech savvy
Right.
skills and access is huge. Like I sit on the Judy Center partnership for Wycomico County, and so it's a partnership for early childhood and different things. And I talk a lot with Barb Graham from the library about how often their computers and things are used. And she said there has been a major shift from 10, 15 years ago when people from the community would just come in and want to play computer games to
Right.
now they're trying to find ways to increase their the number of computers and laptops they have because people are coming in to write papers and to
Right.
connect to the internet to be able to do job applications or things like that. And so there's this shift of just using the technology for a game or things like that to actually real life skills and to be able to accomplish the tasks that are being assigned.
Right, like even the media center teacher at my job, like that
Mm-hmm.
does library and stuff. Like I've seen as low as first graders, like she's teaching them the home keys on the
Mm-hmm.
keyboard. They're learning how to type. Like third grade had a paper to type. Of course, they found like They found the information together with the teacher. She showed them from the projector screen. She did it
Hmm.
all with them. And as they were doing it, they were writing it down on a piece of paper. So she had them type up their information.
Hmm.
Of course, it took like a week or so. But, it's still giving them those tools that they need because, by like eighth grade, you're writing papers. And now I'm pretty sure that they're typing papers by a
Hmm.
certain grade now. So,
Well, I think it's one area too where teachers and administration have to be cognizant of the fact of what they're requiring from students.
right,
That if you're requiring students to type a paper, that you're not giving them a 2 day notice or a 1 week notice, but it's more like the college setup where you're given a
mhm,
syllabus and said, here's what's going to happen over the course of the semester. Now, obviously, with elementary, you can't give them that much information. They would
right,
feel like their heads would explode
right.
at one time. But you can say, hey, this is where we're headed. And as we go through, either provide time during the given class time
Mhm.
for students to engage with technology, or giving them extended time to have projects like that done, and either connecting with the families or students that have need, and staying after school and opening up computer labs, doing whatever it takes so that
Mhm.
students have a chance to engage with technologies.
Right, because I feel like they give them these assignments, like whether it's like group research or
Hmm.
writing a paper or something. If you have no computer at home, there's nothing that's going to get done besides
Right.
what's done, during the school day. And if they have three computers in the classroom, it may not be their time to come today, but the paper is due in 2 days. So, they need each time that
Right.
you have people on the computers, they need to be one of the people in there. So
Hmm.
I think that that's like a huge problem because even some of my friends when I was in high school, if we had to type something, I would see them staying after school or I would see them early, like
Hmm.
real early in the morning. Um, and they would be like, yeah, I'm typing my paper because either they don't have a computer or maybe it's out of commission and doesn't work.
Right.
So we have to put in all those factors into when you're giving them this stuff because you can't give them to them on Monday saying
Yeah.
you want it by Friday.
Or even you have access to a computer, but then you don't have access to a printer,
Right.
or the printer runs out of ink, or all those
Right.
things that happen that
Hmm.
teachers can sometimes be very quick to say, hey, well, that's not my problem, that's your
Right.
problem, when really it's like it's not the student's fault. It's really
At
not.
all. Like exactly. If they can buy a computer, I'm sure they would. So
Yeah. Well,
like
and that's one thing too. Like, I love it when I see things from different community organizations. Like one of the things that I saw, it was probably the beginning of last school year. Comcast sent us a bunch of flyers to include in our school newsletter for parents that if depending on their income level, that they could receive a free laptop.
oh wow.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it this school year, but it was something, I mean, it's not going to be a MacBook Pro, but
Right.
it was a laptop. It was something that they could utilize. It was for their family, and they were just given it. There was no ties to it. It's not like, hey, we're going to give you a laptop, but you have to
Bring it back.
do this package for Comcast, and you can only have it for 3 months. But
Right.
it was just like, no, here it is. And I was like, that is so powerful in engaging the community, but also for them stepping up and mentoring and doing things like that. But mentoring was one of the big things in one of the NPR podcasts, like you were saying, about different community members and different business members stepping up and saying, hey, this is an issue that we have, and if we want to have viable candidates for positions in our company in 20 years, then we have to step up and commit to providing resources, but also engaging students in experiences where they become creators, not consumers of technology.
Right. Because if you give anybody a free computer, if their computer doesn't work, they're for it. Like, you know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying? It doesn't have to be the latest in technology. If they don't have
Right.
one, they're going to be grateful, that they
Right.
even have one, period, whether it's for educational purposes or just for social, aspects
Mm-hmm.
of it. So, and I think a lot of companies and like people like Comcast or maybe Apple, um, do stuff like that for certain schools. Well, in certain areas, I'm not saying give the whole school MacBooks, but
Yeah.
do like you said, they would give them out to a certain amount of people every year or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it'll work. Like my computer, I just got a new one on Saturday. I've had my parents' computer for a year since I've been here, because mine just died on me one day. Like,
Hmm.
you know, and I've had it since like 2008 or something like that. So it was on its last leg anyway. But it just died. So anything happens with
Right. Well, and that's like the laptop that I had when I was in undergrad, which I'm not that much older than you. I'm not too old, but I had it for like I had it for like 6 7 years, and it just died, and so I was without a laptop. And luckily, our building we got each of the classroom teachers got a laptop to use
oh wow,
last year, and so like I mean it's not ours to keep forever. It's but we use it because we have like the docking station, so we can connect our smart board or like our whiteboard technology to the laptop. But it's nice because I can bring it home, and
exactly,
work on stuff like this and things
right,
like that. So, but it's like without that, then I would have to be buying a new laptop, and
exactly,
that's not
right.
fun for me to think about. Let alone I know some of my students' families where the parents are just excited to have a smartphone,
Hmm.
and it's definitely going to, just like cyberbullying is an issue that has to be tackled. It's going to take time, it's going to take resources, but it's going to take people stepping up and saying, hey, I might not have the resources, or I might not be able to be there in person to mentor these students that want to go into computer programming, but I can Skype with them, during their lunch break when they're at school, if their teacher, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to take some creative thinking on the part of educators and administrators. I don't think that we can leave out our admin, and our upper level, because things have to change there, and also in higher ed, like the people that are teaching the next generation of teachers, like things have to change in what's expected from them in terms of technology and in
Right.
terms of mindset too.
Hmm.
That
Like I feel like everybody's aware of it, but we don't say anything. And I think, like you said, it needs to be more than just teachers because, believe it or not, we're not the ones that make the decision of that stuff. You need the administrators to back you up, or go to the
and the
board or what.
supervisors and the
Right,
directors and
exactly.
the
Like you need a squad
superintendents.
to go up there with you. We all just can't do it by ourselves either. So
Right.
I feel like we're all aware of the issue, but it's just like sometimes I feel like it's like if it's not the people in my classroom or it isn't me, then it doesn't affect you, which I feel like is a mindset some people need to get out of.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's computers for the classroom itself. Like I think I was in the fifth grade classroom and they had like four computers, but it's like 20 kids in there. Now I'm not saying give them a whole computer lab in the back, but at least half the amount of the number of students that's in the classroom. But once again, you need to be aware of that. You need money and all that stuff. So
Hmm.
you need a group to get it done.
Well, and that's one thing too that I think that education professionals have got to be more aware of too is grants and things put out by community
Right.
foundations, by other companies, things like that we have got to start capitalizing on.
Hmm.
And not just in terms of getting more technology so that we have it accessible, but also getting access to appropriate software and
Right.
programs that we can engage with our students in, or licensing, because I know that's a big issue in our county, is that the county might have a subscription to something, but because
Hmm.
it only purchased a limited number of licenses, only a few certain schools get access to the program,
Hmm.
or things like that. And it's like, well, that would be a really great program for all of our schools to have access to,
Right.
but because of licensing or because of the cost per subscription is so high,
Right.
and so some of those things, I'm kind of one of those idealists where I'm like, I think if it's for education, it shouldn't cost the school
Right.
anything.
Just
But
let it.
most businesses would disagree with me on that,
Right. Of course.
unfortunately.
But it's just like, we're training the new people that will be in your shoes one
Yeah,
day. That's what I think they need to think
give
of.
back, give
Right,
back,
give
give
back to
back,
the
give
new
them back.
you. That's gonna happen. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, money's the biggest issue.
yeah. But yeah, I don't. Any other points or anything that you want to make?
I think we've touched on it all.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right. Hour-long conversation.
Yeah, a good conversation though.
Right. I'm about to say it's never dull, so.
No, it's never dull. I think I'm enjoying our partnership here because I think we're
Right.
very I'll speak for myself so I don't offend you, but very slightly opinionated, but
Mhm.
also not afraid to stand up on the soapbox and say what needs to be said. You
Right.
know, which
And
I enjoy that.
right. And it's in a way where you know you can back up what you're saying. It's not like I feel
Mhm.
like we should get new computers and that's it. So, you know, and we're advocates
Right.
for the same thing. So I think
Right.
it makes it work too. It's not
Yep.
like I'm like we should have technology and you're like it doesn't matter to me if we do it or not. So,
Right. Whereas it matters.
right. Exactly.
So, cool. All right. Well, until next time.
Right. Just email me
Yep.
the link.
The link. I will.
Okay.
All right. Later.